Well, the season has come to an end. The guys are cleaning out their locker rooms and talking to media. I'm Savanna Hamilton alongside Paul Jones and Sherman Hamilton. Amy Audibert will be joining us later. You are watching the last episode of the season of Raptors today. We will have future coverage, of course, you guys already know that, but let's break down what we heard from the guys, starting with the man himself, the president, the vice chairman, and the myth and the legend, Masai Ujiri.
This game is about winning. Simple. Yeah. There's nothing else. It's only winning. Yeah, we want to win in Toronto. Yeah, I say it all the time. It's winning. Nothing else. Nothing. We can come hold hands, do whatever we want, hug, wear masks, do anything we want. Okay? Winning. Yeah, winning. Empty stadium, full stadium, winning. That's it. That's the kind of players we try to bring. Yeah, we want to win a championship here. It's not playoffs. Yeah, playoffs is good, but win big, win a championship. That's what we want to do here. Yeah, and sports is about competing. Yeah, so in our mindset, that's the kind of players like we want to bring. When we interviewed Scotty, he mentioned winning 100 times. He kept on talking about winning. Every time you talk to Freddie, I just met with Freddie a couple days ago, and it's winning, win. It comes out of their mouth all the time. You talk to all the players, win. The players you get like that are the players that are going to win. That's what they believe in. Whether their personalities are different, they have to have that mindset of winning. And that's what we want, because I think that's what sports is about. Not really. It's, it's sometimes we see it a different way because we're on the inside, and you hope that these guys continue to make progress. Sometimes when it starts, it doesn't look, as pretty and as good. And there's still a lot of work to do. I think it's still a team of the future. I think we have to have patience and grow. It's the first time Pascal and Fred and Ujiri have been at the helm, and I think they did okay. And the young guys, the first time they are really playing. I'm happy that they got that playoff experience, and due to injuries and players being out, COVID and all, everybody kind of got an opportunity, to play in good moments this season, good or bad. And that, I think, leads to, the experience. And does that lead to it being faster? I don't know. We still have the patience here to build this team and whatever it takes to get these guys to grow. We always have to be ahead. I think we always have to be in front. To that, I want to make this point, and I hope this is not controversial in any way. The black coaches that were hired last year, I think they did phenomenal this year, and nobody is recognizing them like that. We only sometimes recognize when they don't do so well. But if you make the rounds, from Jamal Mosley to Ime Udoka to Wes to all of them, Jason Kidd, Chauncey, I think all of them. What's my guy in New Orleans? Everybody. Will Green, all of them, I think, had really good, solid years for what they had in their program, and I think they have to be commended, for that, and encouraged, and black executives too. As I said, the game is going global, and I'm really interested in the BAL League in Africa, the WNBA. There are many things that intrigue us here. I know that I think we will continue to talk about how do we get this franchise even bigger in how we think, with whether it's facilities or even thinking of the game just even more global, which is where my mind is always at. I think Vice Chairman helped me building 100 courts in Africa and making progress with that. Built 13 already and another, I think, 15 under construction to be open in the summer. And hopefully I'm given the opportunity where I get to 100. Soon. That's big for me. And I'm sticking to my brother too, Amadou Gallo Fall, who is the president of the BAL League, and seeing the development of that league being held in Dakar, in Cairo, and now the finals in Rwanda. I think one day that's going to be something incredible from all the African players I see, even in the NBA, and the talent on the continent. I think that's going to be big. So that's not quite vice chairman-y, but it is something to me. Good? Good?
You mentioned WNBA, like how...
Oh, I'm not going into that range.
Okay.
Our dreams. Just like the Lakers now.
Now, something that Masai Ujiri, guys, he made it very, very obvious and very, very clear. This organization is about winning, and that's not changing, Jonesy.
Well, he's always said that, and he reiterated that at his news conference, that it's about winning, and he wants to win in Toronto, and he feels that he's going to win. And there's a way, there's a formula, there's a blueprint to go about it, and Masai is passionate about that. And he talked about all the other things you can do to make you feel good. He said, you play with masks or no masks, full arena, empty arena, you can hug and you can, do all this stuff. But the main thing is the main thing, and it's about winning. And I think the attitude that comes from Masai and trickles down, it permeates the entire organization. When you think about Nick Nurse, you heard from Fred VanVleet talking about winning, and everybody thought, okay, this is a development year, let's see what you have. The Raptors have seen what they have, and it's back to, well, it's time to win again. And I think you get that from Masai Ujiri. And look, let's face it, if you are not the lead dog, the view is all the same. So you got to get out in front. You want to see what it's like from the front, and that entails winning. And I think that's what Masai's all about. I know that's what he's all about, and he's been pushing that. And you're not bringing people into this organization unless they plan to win.
Absolutely, and something that you mentioned, they're looking to win now. Like, they're not looking to keep on developing. This was a very successful season for the Toronto Raptors. They weren't even expected to make the playoffs. I always had other thoughts on, just based on, if you look at the roster, if you look at who the former champs are on this team, they've always had the pieces to win. But there comes a point in time when, you have development players, you have young players, you have the Rookie of the Year. That still comes with some patience, Sherm.
Yeah, it does, and that's not necessarily something that fans want to hear. After you've been to the mountaintop, you've won a championship, it's hard to sell patience, and I think what Masai Ujiri has done throughout his tenure as a Toronto Raptor executive, he's done a great job in making sure that there's development while there's winning, and that's a difficult thing to kind of manage and juggle, but he's done a great job. He also mentioned something else that becomes a very integral part of it, and that's expectation. And sometimes expectation can be the enemy of patience. And when expectation gets far ahead, patience gets left behind. But Masai Ujiri and his crew do a great job of really balancing that. And you've got to be patient. If you have a process, you have a game plan, then you've got to stick to it. And it's going to involve patience. Selling patience is a tough commodity to sell. But the reality is you can trust Masai Ujiri because he's been able to provide a championship team. That means that he understands how to build. And he's always been about development. Yep. He's always been about young talent. And he's always understood that there are levels to this. You don't just show up and become a champion. You've got to take the steps necessary to get there.
Absolutely. And when you're taking the steps, you're looking at the Raptors 905, how Fred VanVleet, Norm Powell when he was a player here, Pascal Siakam winning a championship at that level, at that development level, Chris Boucher coming up through the 905, and that all took patience. It wasn't just a magical 2019 year that all of a sudden we have a championship. championship. That was homegrown talent, to say the least. But we got to talk a little bit, switch gears here about successful black coaches throughout the NBA, because we saw a surge. Like, we saw a lot more coaches who were representing the black community, who are doing well in the league. Like, Boston comes to mind first and foremost.
Well, 14 at the end of the season, 14 of the 30 head coaches in the NBA were African American or of black descent. And let's give the NBA a little bit of credit for walking the walk in terms of presenting opportunities. That's what it's about. It's about opportunities. Ime Udoka in Boston certainly did a terrific job, and there were questions about him when he first came in, and the Celtics with their tradition and their winning history, and it took him some time to figure it out, but you look at where the Celtics are now. I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum too. Willie Green, they started off really poorly in New Orleans, but he stuck to the plan. He kept with the development. He kept encouraging his players. The positivity, again, permeated everything, and they made it through the play-in and gave his old mentor, Monty Williams, a pretty good tussle in the first round. And Masai Ujiri, rightfully so, highlighted all of these guys. And look, what the NBA and the organizations have to do now is have patience with these guys. When you think about what Chauncey Billups had to go through, the fact that Nate McMillan was hired as an interim and the Hawks were up and down this year. Give them time, give them opportunity. Jamal Mosley took over in Orlando. That's a young, growing team. Give these guys time, be patient with them, and I'm glad Masai Ujiri highlighted them, and again, just kind of put it out there that give these guys some time so they can work their magic.
Jonesy, you mentioned the opportunity, but sometimes with opportunity comes patience, as you mentioned, Sharon, but then also infrastructure. It's one thing to give a community of people the opportunity. It's another thing to foster their growth, and that takes time. That development takes time. So I do agree with you 100%. Don't have a short leash on coaches that are just seeing for the first time some opportunities arise now. Another opportunity that Masai Ujiri kind of hinted at a little bit was a potential WNBA franchise in the city. You know how I feel about the WNBA, guys. I obviously have a show dedicated to that league. And to be quite honest with you, it's about time. It's about time. Like, the market is ready. There's been tons of research. We just need, once again, the infrastructure to support the opportunity that's there. But I think back to even when Duquesne and UConn women's basketball team sold out the Mattamy Athletic Center. That's the old Maple Leaf Gardens, of course. That was packed. You couldn't get a ticket. And I go online, and there's such a strong women's basketball community online. Drake himself, right? He tweeted, he's like, bring a WNBA franchise to Toronto. One of the stars of the league, Liz Cambage, was even like, I'll play here. Heck, if she plays here, I'll be the first one to recover that story. So I know that that'd be huge for the city. I think it's about time, and I'm glad Masai Ujiri touched on that a little bit. But give me your thoughts, Sherm.
Well, I agree with you, first of all. I think it's great timing to bring a WNBA team to Toronto. And when you think about it, we talk about the women's game, which needs to get the platform. But I also, when you're talking about building infrastructure and building loyalty and building a fan base, think about all the little boys that are going to grow up watching the WNBA right in their backyard, having a different appreciation for it and understanding that there's value and there's a reason why the WNBA matters. So I just think that there's so many levels that a WNBA franchise can hit in this market, and I think it will be supported. But I want to say this, make sure it's a long-term investment.
Yes.
Make sure it's something that is going to be around and it's going to be invested in. It's going to be treated with the proper respect for the long term. Don't make it a short-term situation. More damage than good. Make it as long as you can.
If you're going to do it right. Yep. Simple as that. Now, you're going to hear from Fred VanVleet and also Amy Audibert.
Well, it's time. It's time now. It's about as much building as we all want to do. I think we have the pieces, and now how do you put those pieces together? Can you add a few pieces around the board? And then how do you make it work? How does it make most sense to be the most efficient, the most lethal team that you can put out on the floor? And I think we can definitely get better without adding anything. So whether we add some more shooting or a big, that would obviously help. But I think the team that we have right now, if we just played a little bit better and smarter and more. I think we can use our strengths a little bit better, and that's something that we'll address as players, in the off season and try to come back next year. And just it's weird to be in such a up in the air season where nobody thought you were going to be any good, but you're good. And so we were playing for a championship, but it was kind of free basketball, so to speak. So I think coming back with a singular goal in mind, I think that will help and let us all fall into our roles and be the most effective team we can be. Well, I think I just did as much as I could early on to set the tone, and then you got to let the team unfold and blossom along the way. So I think a lot of the young guys grew in those roles in terms of leadership and being accountable. I think adding that, helped a lot in terms of just having another voice of somebody that can give a different opinion, that's played, 15 years or whatever he's played. So I think having those type of voices in the locker room helps, but there's no better teacher than experience. And so now, the very first time we get back together, I'll have a whole 6 games of playoffs to use as, when somebody makes a mistake or when we're not doing things the right way, we can look back and see where that affects you. And I don't think that was necessarily the case the whole year, because if they don't know, they don't know. You know what I mean? And myself included, I'm not saying like it was all on them, but that was a problem for a while. It's like there's no point of reference, for a young team, and now we have that.
Welcome back to Raptors Today. Now, Amy, we have to talk about Fred VanVleet. We just heard from him. He entered a new leadership role this season. Obviously, with Kyle Lowry out, different team for him with the Heat. He had big shoes to fill. He had a big role to fill. And, what do you think he did with that role? How do you like his leadership style that we saw this season?
Well, first, I hope it's something that he's very proud of. When you look at his approach this season, understanding the elevated, not only example, but he was going to have the ball in his hand, but also just a voice in the locker room. That was all going to be a bigger stage for him. Thought he started off the season understanding younger guys, less experienced guys, and he really deferred the first couple weeks, especially trying to let guys find their own way through a Raptors program. I keep going to that game at Washington when we saw the Sam Cassell impersonation, and it was go time. Fred said, all right, I've got to hit shots, I've got to make plays for this team to be successful. It turns into undrafted to all-star. What an incredible season for Fred VanVleet. And even though he didn't finish the way he wanted with that knee that was a little bit banged up, I hope he was proud of the team that finished 5th in the East, because that was a lot of young or inexperienced guys who found ways to fight. And I believe it was through the leadership of Fred VanVleet.
Absolutely. He's done a remarkable job. He's really, I think, found his own voice throughout the season. We saw his leadership progress from preseason all the way to the playoffs as well, and how missed he was in Game 6. We really needed a floor general out there as well. But let's talk about the pieces of improving the core that we already have, but how that can get better.
Loved what he said in his locker room clean-out conversation with the media was, it's go time now. We have experience now. And Masai Ujiri also echoed those things about every single guy can find a way to get better on the court. But Fred has now set a tone, right? The expectations are to get to the postseason, are to win a round, are to compete for a championship. That's what this team wants. And so it goes back to, now you have experience. Now we have the Rookie of the Year who has a now next step up, elevate your game, a Precious Achiuwa, a Chris Boucher. Everybody has come in and made impacts. And when your leader, again, undrafted to All-Star, says, I can do it, you can do it too. And I mean, I'm already pumped up for next year just by his message to the world.
Absolutely, Amy. Now, Sherm, Jonesy, and I will be going through our favorite moments of the season. Welcome back to Raptors Today. Now, guys, we got to talk about our favorite moments of the season. This is our last episode, so we got to say it now. Sherm, you start us off.
There's so many favorite moments in the course of the season. I'm sure we'll all speak to them, but one of my favorite moments was Fred VanVleet being selected to the All-Star game. When you look at his journey, undrafted, makes this team a G League champion, an NBA champion, and now having another notch on the belt, being voted an All-Star. And you think about the idea that Fred is not done. There's a lot more left in the tank for Fred VanVleet, and it's just so impressive to see him build his career with dedication, with hard work, betting on himself, and achieving all these goals. And just to see that reward of being in the All-Star game, earning that spot, and being amongst the best players in the NBA, to me was a great feel-good moment for a player that I admire, for a player who's had a very, very different journey than a lot of people that were in the All-Star game, but is one of those journeys that we can all relate to and we can all appreciate.
Absolutely. You know, Masai Ujiri, he mentioned something in the press conference about Fred VanVleet about how, yeah, sure, he's a little on the shorter side of this roster, but he plays like he's 6'9". He has a heart of a 6'9" guy, and you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference at some points. You know, he's that leader, he's that floor general, and he's definitely made his strides this season himself. But what stands out to me in terms of favorite moments has to be Precious Achiuwa making the Rising Stars Challenge in the All-Star game and also showing out there as well. He played so well, and I think that truly boosted his confidence going into the second half of the season. He was already on the upswing, going from, probably too many options at one point, not knowing what to do in the beginning of the season, to narrowing down his focus and being way more efficient. And then you add that layer of confidence from the Rising Stars Challenge, and there you go. You have Precious Achiuwa, the one that we know now, coming off the bench, being that spark for the Raptors.
For me, Savanna, I think about the great individual accomplishments that both you and Sherman highlighted. And I think Pascal Siakam is one that could have been at the All-Star game. And when you think about rolling all those three guys into one, Fred, Precious, Pascal, my favorite moment from a team standpoint came in that win at Denver. The second night of back-to-back. Raptors going into a tough place to play. We hear about the altitude. They'd already won at Phoenix, and it would have been easy to say, you know what, I'll cash that chip and I'll go to the bank and I'll leave the building. Well, no, they stayed, and they got up in Denver, and then they lost the lead in the third quarter, and they came back and dominated the fourth quarter. And it was a little bit of a get back after what happened in Toronto against Denver with no fans in the building. And to me, that epitomized everything about this team. You know, you expect us to give up or roll over, or you think we've done enough. There's never enough, and it ties back into what we first talked about with Masai. It's about winning. So to me, that moment really stood out, and to me, it actually helped catapult them forward going on that run towards the end of the season and securing a 7-game series in the playoffs.
Well, you mentioned it right there. End of the season. That wraps up our show Raptors Today for this season. But before we go, you know we got to give some love to the fans, whether you're watching on NBA TV Canada or on YouTube. Thank you for spending either 5 minutes of your day or the full 30 minutes of your day watching this show. You're very much appreciated here. From myself, Savanna Hamilton, Paul Jones, Sherman Hamilton, Amy Audibert, Luke, Garth, Brandon, Jake, Armando, Josh, thank you for watching another episode of Raptors Today.